watch it at another time. Looks like the recording started, so just be careful what you say. So hopefully everybody sees my screen okay. If you can't, just chime in. So why do I have to document contractors on DWRs? Nebraska DOT, the Federal Highway and Contractors value the opportunities that exist to perform work on our state's roadways for the traveling public, making sure our contractors are appropriately represented on contracts help us deliver on those goals. It also provides records for the NDOT, accurate documentation of work performed, provides proof if disputes arise. And then NDOT and Federal Highway Compliance, we have a Civil Rights Office that manages our Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, or DBE program. This is required by Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of '64. You can read kind of the reasoning behind it. Just basically it says people shouldn't be excluded based on some different criteria. So today we're going to be covering contract DBE goal requirements, give a little high-level quick overview of how prime and subcontractors get approved, tracking subcontractors and contractors and site manager, some SSRS reports that exist, any email notifications that are sent out, how to deal with issues that come up, and then a little time for Q&A after that. I'll pause. Do we have any questions or comments at this point? All right, we'll keep going. So DBE goals. We at NDOT have an overall DBE goal on federally assisted contracts only. This is set every 3 years with the Federal Highway. Basically just states that as an agency on contracts that have federal money, we'll meet an overall goal of 5% or whatever value they come up with. So this gets translated into contract DBE goals. These are set before letting, and then the prime provides commitments to the amount that they'll use for DBE subcontractors on contracts, and they'll indicate the amount that's been subcontracted, and this gets recorded in Site Manager. If you want to view what the goal is for your contract, go to Contracts on the main panel, and then under the DBE Commit tab, it'll show the DBE goal for your contract if one exists. So how do prime contractors and subcontractors get approved? Prime contractors have to be pre-qualified prior to letting. They submit valid bids on proposals, and then Nebraska is considered the low bid state, and so the lowest bidder gets awarded the contract. And the contract is between the DOT and the prime contractor only. For subcontractors, the prime indicates who they're going to use for subs. This is provided via electronic file, and this file gets uploaded in the Site Manager, so that's how all the subcontractors for a contract appear in Site Manager. We do have to approve the use of subcontractors for prime, and then the contracts for subcontractors exist between the prime and subcontractors. There's no contract between the DOT and subcontractors. DBE contractors that will count towards your DBE goals can be either prime or subcontractors. There are a couple primes out there that are DBE contractors. They have to qualify with our Civil Rights and Labor Office on an annual basis. And like I said, these contribute towards the DBE goal. And this also includes truckers and suppliers as well. Do we have any questions at this point? Okay. So to look for Site Manager, your prime contractor, it's under the Prime Contractor tab. It shows the max subcontracted percent. This is set in section 108.01, subsection 1.8 of the spec book. It's 70%. If you have specialty items on your contract, those don't count towards this percent. Just a little information if you're curious to look at. For site manager subcontractors, this is under the subcontracts module or component under contractor management. Some information you can look for is the DB type, highlighted in red here for TravCon. They're at WB, and then the approval date. This is important. We can cover this in dealing with issues. Our subcontracts office enters the state when they approve the subcontract. And then there's some other information about the amount that they're subcontracted, the percentage, just different information for your use. So recording in Site Manager. We want to record this to monitor progress on the DB goal. This provides accurate reporting for our civil rights and labor section, and also when we have to report to federal highway. It also provides documentation in disputes and legal issues. We have records of work performed. If there's multiple contractors performing the same kind of work, say you have a couple contractors that are doing concrete work, you know which one performed work at what time. It can keep track of poor craftsmanship, or if a contractor damages property or material in the course of their work. And then you get towards the end of the contract and the contractor's requesting a time extension. You have documentation if maybe there's inadequate workforce or if they weren't on the job site when they could have been performing work. So just good information to have for our records in case issues or disputes arise. So recording contractors in a daily work report. We record these on the Contractors tab of the daily work report. Looks like Jeff did a pretty good job here filling this one out. Not picking on anybody or giving any examples, just one I found. But you can see they indicated that Contractors was on site as well as IES Holdings, a number of supervisors and workers, and then the hours that were worked for each contractor. Even went as far as filling out the supervisor or foreman name. So when you go to select a contractor here, it'll always show the prime and then any approved subs. We'll cover it a little bit more in dealing with issues, but if you have a sub that's not showing here, there's a issue in the system or a reason why, so you'll want to notify somebody. Like I said, we'll cover that in dealing with issues. So once you have the contractors filled out, when you go to pay for work items, you'll indicate locations, quantities, the contractor here. The prime is always available. Subs will only show if they were added to the contractors tab and that they're assigned to that particular work item. So if both those conditions aren't met, then you won't see the subcontractor on the work item when you go to pay for it. So as you can see on this example, the prime Garcia coin shows up because of the prime. It's an erosion control item, green thumb, and they were approved for work and added to the contractors tab, so they're appearing as a selection on here. So by picking the right subcontractor or contractor that performs the work, provides us the ability to monitor and keep track. It makes it easier for us to report for civil rights and labor and federal highway and other departments within the agency on who's doing what work and how much of the work they're doing. So what reports exist to help you make sure that information is getting recorded properly on daily work reports. The first one is the DB goal progress by contract ID. You can find this report by clicking on the reports button within Site Manager. From the report portal, it's under user role, report access, all access, civil rights. Like I said, it's called DB goal progress by contract. Here's the link for it, and it just shows the contract amount, working days, how much was charged, the DB goal, what that amount comes out to for a dollar amount, what percentage of the contract is subcontracted to DBEs, the goal percentage, and then down here it lists all the subcontractors, indicates which ones are DBEs. In this case, it's contractor services, their contract amount, and then how much has been paid to them as of the date the report was ran. So it's a good way to use this report to make sure that your prime is fulfilling their obligation and meeting their DB goal, and working with them to make sure that that commitment's been made. Another one, this is run by our construction office. It's included in an email notification we'll cover in a little bit. But this shows work items that maybe the prime was picked when the item was completely subbed out to subcontractors. So doesn't maybe quite make sense that the prime would do work, but could be the case the prime did work. They are eligible to do any and all work on the contract as they see fit. So not saying that these instances are wrong, it's just how the report's shown. So just a warning to go check and make sure that the right contractor was selected for the work item. So email notifications, the project managers receive a weekly email for contract status report with different issues that exist on the contract or potential problems that they might want to look into before it gets to spend, and they have a whole long list. Just kind of help keep everybody up to date. At the bottom of the report, this is coming in the future. It shows a portion of the report that was shown on the previous screen, just indicating potential work items, and then areas where the prime was selected rather than the sub who was contracted to perform the work. Like I said, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's just something to FYI take a look at, make sure it's right. So when we go to report on this information, that it's accurate. So dealing with issues, if you're looking under the subcontractor module or component and you don't see a subcontractor in a contract that should be there, contact the subcontracts office and kind of ask why. Maybe the prime didn't fill out the electronic file properly, or there was an issue when it got loaded in the Site Manager that it didn't come across. If the sub isn't showing up on the Contractor tab when you're filling out a daily work report, go back to the subcontractor component, make sure the sub appears there. And if they do, you'll want to check to make sure the approval date is entered. Sometimes we have cases where a contractor's insurance is expired. If that's the case, they're no longer eligible or approved to perform work on a contract. And so we want to make sure that any contractors aren't doing that if that's the case. Occasionally we have a system problem where it likes to zero out that date. So the subcontracts office just needs to go back in and re-enter approval date there so that they'll show up for you on the daily work report. If you're filling out the work items tab and you don't see the subcontractor in the drop-down box, just make sure they're added to the Contractors tab. And then if you get the email notification here in the future and you get the portion at the bottom showing that there's maybe a wrong contractor selected, just verify that the DWR was filled out correctly and the proper contractor was selected. So I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. Hopefully it gives you a quick overview as to why we fill out the information that we do in Site Manager and on daily work reports, and how contractors and subs are approved. Are there any questions at this time?
Hey, Ryan, I had a question that came in from Eric back when you were on the DWR screen selecting the contractors.
Sure.
And he just asked, why does it matter if a sub under contract for a certain line item for them, why does it matter for them to be selected?
He's talking about the screen here, Brad.
Yeah, I think that was about one. Does that look about right, Eric?
No, my question is more related to if you have a subcontractor who's approved on the job, so they have up-to-date insurance and they're approved, say do line items 1, 2, and 3, why can't we select them to do line item 4 if they happen to do line item 4? I mean, we don't have any agreements with the sub anyway. All their agreements were with the prime, and if they change their mind on the fly, if you're looking for the most accurate report, it would be more accurate if we could select them even for the line items they weren't originally contracted to do. If accuracy is your number one priority, I think you should be able to select all approved subcontractors on every line item. I mean, that's an issue between the sub and the prime. That's not an issue between us and them. If a sub's doing work they're not supposed to do, that's an issue between them and the prime contractor. We should be left completely out of that.
Yeah, you're right, Eric. I think I misspoke on that. You're right. If the contractor's selected on the contractors tab and they're approved, they'll show up in the drop down on the work items report. Yep, I spoke wrong on that. Yeah, well, that was a recent change, so you can select any approved sub on any work item, assuming they're added to the contractors tab. Yep, you're correct.
Okay.
So, yeah, I apologize for that. I misspoke on that.
Okay. So when was that changed? You're saying then if any subcontractor is doing flagging, I can select their name on there, but the contract I'm working on currently, say there's a sub out there doing flagging, the only contractor I can pick is the prime for that pay item.
Right. Did you catch that? No. Can you repeat that? You were kind of quiet. I couldn't quite hear everything you were saying.
Okay. The contract I'm working on right now, I have a sub that is doing some flagging, but when I go to that item to pay for the flagging, the only contractor I can pick is the prime.
And they're added on the contractors tab? Yes. And they're an approved subcontractor?
Right. They're doing the dirt work, but they didn't have the flagging item so that it was, unless that has just changed like in the last day or so. So far on the job, I haven't been able to pick them. We used to get a hold of like Lucinda Dowding, I think, and then she could add them to it. But you're saying they shouldn't all show up now, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Let's look into that. Shoot me an email, and we'll take a look.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? All right. Well, thanks again for joining today. If you have any other questions or comments that come up, feel free to email us at the AWP Project Support or give us a call. Hope you all have a good day and stay cool out there. Thanks.